I've tried ketamine powder cooked down with B12 before, known locally as Super K, which seems to cause a weird sort of super effect and disassociation from the K experience itself. The K hits you stronger than it normally would. But when you pay attention to its effects, it kind of feels as if you're remembering what they're like as opposed to feeling them in real time. I'd been told that this was because Ket affected the same receptors that B12 did. Although whether or not that's true I don't know. At any rate, I got a hold of some injectable IM B12 along with a good supply of liquid Ket, so last night I decided to see what would happen if I combined them intramuscularly. Injected half into my left shoulder first. As I got to my right shoulder for the second half it started kicking in. The initial rise was a lot more intense, right off the bat, than without the B12. The buzz in my hearing was getting loud, quick, and my entire body started vibrating way more than it ever had before. I had trouble even getting the second dose in, as my hand was shaking so badly I was having trouble with the plunger. I got it in before it was too strong, though, and laid back. The rush kept coming, but was gaining in both volume and overall intensity way beyond the onset of any other K-trip. The last thought in my mind as I was approaching K-land was, shit. I guess I shouldn't have done this. Hope I don't die. I would have chuckled but I was cut off. Click. Extremely brief blackout, as usual at this point, and blam, in K-land. Sorta. I was in the tunnel stage, being dragged this way and that through the strange, fourth-dimensional space I've come to love. Only everything was much clearer. The visuals were crisper, feelings of motion much stronger. There was something else amiss, although at this point I was way too overwhelmed to know what. I'm comfortable, and familiar, with K-land. This was different enough that it was like doing K for the first time all over again. The tunneling continued for a normal amount of time, except rather than just suddenly realizing I had my ego back, I could sense it coming on slowly. For the first time ever, I remember feeling my lips speak some strange sounds, words while I was still traveling through the tunnels. I wish I could remember some of the things I said, and when I said them, I was making weird sounds, speaking in tongues in response to specific events happening to me in K-land, as if some part of me was identifying with, or responding to, them. The most noteworthy part of this slow yet noted regaining of my ego was that I remembered who I was way before I normally would. I was at the tail end of the tunnel stage, but still in it, and at this point realized what I had felt was amiss the whole time. The entire experience felt like I was watching a very good movie, absorbed by it and blanking out everything else, rather than fully absorbed and unaware of any other reality, like it is when just doing K by itself. As soon as I realized this, I decided to try and focus my concentration back to my body, and found that I could do it, although it was difficult to maintain. Something about this made me think, maybe if I focus my mind specifically away from my body, I can have a true, out-of-body experience. This had been my plan for every other K-trip I'd ever been on, although the lack of ego and abrupt shift from egoless to self-identity status on my other K-trips had always killed the plan. So, this time I tried it. I let myself slip back into the now fading tunnel state, but somehow, focused my attention away and up, to a point I believed was somewhere near my ceiling. I felt a weird shifting, off from the direction the tunnels were pulling me and sort of towards the ceiling, but almost as soon as it started it subsided again, and I realized that I was now completely out of the tunnel state into the post-K land, self-realized but still really screwed up phase. Too bad. If only I'd figured it out a little sooner, I think I would have succeeded. The rest of the trip was familiar territory, nothing special. The only noteworthy thing is that rather than going right to sleep like I normally would, I instead got up and went to the bathroom. I think it was from the B12 energizing me, as I had been real tired before I'd taken the K. Urinating was the most difficult thing I think I'd ever done. Must have taken me a couple minutes just to figure out which muscles made it work. I looked in the mirror as well, and had a difficult time recognizing me. Not just from the frame-o-vision effect of the K, but also because I looked as alive as a corpse, all waxy, pale and disheveled. I chuckled at this, went back to bed, and fell asleep. As a side note, although I felt pretty queasy walking around, I didn't feel at all like I was going to throw up. A benefit of injecting over drinking or snorting K, I guess. This morning my entire arms are sore. Something that's never happened before. It is normally just the area right around the injection. And I took some aspirin for a headache I could tell I was going to have when the K fully wore off. It's 11 a.m. now, about 9 hours since I took the K, and I still have threshold effects, and my body is more worn out than after a normal ketamine 100 to 150 mg IM dose. To sum it up, the B12 seemed to intensify the trip a good deal, as well as make it easier to remember. Although I didn't get a whole lot out of it this time, I'm sure once I get used to it I'll be able to start examining the experience better, get more out of it, as I've begun doing on regular K-trips. My only concern is that combining the B12 and ketamine is really hard on my body. The little voice in the back of my head keeps warning me not to do this very often. Other than that, I suggest this, having no medical knowledge to back up if it's at all a sane thing to do, as something for serious ketters to try.